You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
From MMA Oddsbreaker and BetOnFighting.com, joining us tonight, Nick Kalikas. Nick, how is your evening going?
Hey, good, guys. How's everything?
We're doing pretty good. We just had some fun right before we had you on, talking about how people shouldn't have this sense of entitlement to bootleg pay-per-views.
There's a lot of that stuff going on, right?
Absolutely. I got reamed on a UFC video the other day on YouTube, and I finally let out my steam about it. It's like, you know what? If you don't like a pay-per-view, don't buy it. You know, if you're not into a card, don't bootleg it and then claim later you had a right to.
There you go. There's always an option, unfortunately, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways to watch it. I mean, you'll agree with me here. It's not like every bar in America and everywhere around the world doesn't show UFC anymore. You don't have to pay for it. You can always find a place to go watch it or friends to split it with.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And even online, I mean, I'm sure there's so much out there. It's going to be hard to stop the streams from showing up online, too.
Yeah, and then if you don't even want to bootleg it, you can still read a recap from somebody who did buy it or watch it, like us here at AngryMarks.com, or, watch MMA Oddsbreaker and you hear breakdowns for all the fights and what took place. So one way or another, you can still find out.
Yeah, always up to date on the latest news with sites like that.
Absolutely. So, what are the odds looking like now at this late date for Belfort? Is he like 1,300 underdog on this?
I'm sorry?
Oh, with the UFC that's coming up on Saturday, how long are the odds for Vitor Belfort right now?
Yeah, it's pretty steep. I mean, you're seeing John Jones around minus 925 at Bookmaker, Bet on Fighting. At DSI, he's around minus 905. So, man, close to a 10-1 favorite over Vitor Belfort. That's John Jones. So plus 600, tempting to a lot of guys, especially with the level of experience, the talent that Vitor Belfort has. But, man, I think it's going to be a long night, or a short night, actually, for Vitor Belfort.
Now, we were joking about this on last week's show, and like saying there must be some parlays for things you could get, like, will he finish him in under a minute? Will it go more than one round? Are there any special plays for that right now in that fight?
I'm sure there's going to be some sports books out there that put up different various props with that sort of thing out there. Most of the time, at Bet on Fighting, Bookmaker, and those places, you'll see by knockout, by TKO, by submission, what round it's going to end. So, but there are, I'll tell you what, not that you mentioned that, there are several books that are getting competitive out there that are starting to offer props lines on some craziness. So I have seen props like what you're saying right there, no doubt. So I'm sure there'll be some spots out there with them.
Yeah, because if I was going to lay some money, I would probably lay it on Jones to win this fight in the first round, because to me, it seems like a done deal, but believe it or not, my co-host Peter is actually picking Belfort in the upset.
Wow.
Yeah, Peter, Stevie, you want to defend that?
Stevie, I think last week we were talking about the Anderson Silva Stephan Bonner fight
Was that the one we were doing that for?
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't you continue with that then?
Yeah, Nick, we were talking about what are the odds that Stephan Bonner lasts more than one round against Anderson Silva.
Yeah, that line's ridiculous too, man. And you know what? I hate putting up these crazy lines. 9-1, 10-1. Silva's 13-1. You see Gilbert Melendez actually Strikeforce over Pat Healy. He's around 10-1. He's sitting at 9-1. So, man, the odds are kind of running in, especially recently. It seems like we've opened up these outrageous numbers. But it's hard not to argue. Lines kind of belong up there because they're staying pretty much steady. We are seeing some come in on the underdogs, such as Bonner. The public has bet a little bit here. And I think the line is a little bit steep, honestly. Anderson Silva, pound for pound, the best fighter in the world. I think he's going to steamroll Bonner like everybody else. But, I mean, 12-1, 13-1 is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, some people are calling it, the Buster Douglas special if Bonner somehow knocks out Silva in Brazil.
Now, I think he's got a better chance of trying to follow the Sonnen route, which obviously his wrestling's not on the level of Sonnen, so it's going to be a far different game. But that's his best shot in this fight. Try to get the fight to the floor and try to control him as long as he can, but he's going to have a difficult time doing that. On the feet, I mean, it's obvious what's going to happen.
I was making the joke with my classmates, and I said if Bonner somehow knocks out Silva, Brazilian fans are very calm people, especially during soccer, so they'll take it in stride.
Yeah, that would be outrageous. That'd be such a huge upset, man. And I got nothing but respect for Stephen Bonner too. The guy's a tough guy to finish. That's the scary thing. I mean, look how the guy's solid, definitely well rounded. He's not an easy guy to finish. I mean, his only stoppage, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not looking at his record right now, was the TKO cut that he suffered to Gustav Szymanski. So he's a tough guy to put away. John Jones didn't stop him. That's going back, some time now, and John Jones isn't quite at the level he is now, but still.
Did you guys see Bonner's interview on UFC tonight?
No, I have not.
It was pretty funny, actually. The American Psycho's a funny guy in general, but specifically, the thing I liked about it was he was talking about how if he beat Anderson Silva, it could be like the perfect moment to retire on because he'd never get a bigger win than that. But then if he beat Anderson Silva, they would offer him bigger fights than that. And he goes, that would be an interesting problem to have.
Yeah, I guess so. That'd be a good problem for sure.
Every fighter wants to have that problem.
Yeah, man. Fame, the fortune that comes with everything. I mean, if Bonner pulls this off, no doubt. Well, I'm sure there's gonna be a rematch clause in the contract somewhere.
You would think so. But let's get back to UFC 152 for a second. Can you give us the lines on all these pay-per-view fights? Let's start with Cub Swanson and Oliveira. What's that one looking like right now?
Well, right now Oliveira's coming in about 2.5 to 1. He's sitting at minus 255 exactly, I believe, at betonfighting.com. So 2.5 to 1 favorite over Cub Swanson. Swanson's looked great in his last few fights. I mean, I actually backed him, so I was pleased that he came up with somewhat of an upset over Pearson. And, his last few fights, he has stepped up his game big time. So it's going to be a competitive fight. I just think it's a bad matchup for him. Oliveira on the feet's going to have, obviously, a little bit of reach on him. He could probably outpoint him. Swanson is going to have his best shot on the feet. But on the ground, man, wow, Oliveira. I mean, subbing that. How impressive was his sub win over Jonathan Brookins? Jonathan Brookins has pretty solid BJJ. Obviously, we know what he can do as far as his ground game goes. But I mean, Oliveira just impresses me each time out. So I think he's going to probably win this fight either by decision or sub. So he could win it by KO too. So I think if Cub does win this fight, let me be a little bit more clear. I think his best shot is maybe catching Oliveira and knocking him out. I don't see him winning a decision unless he does rock him a few times and go that route with it. It's a competitive fight, but I think Oliveira can win by decision, probably win by sub, or maybe even by TKO.
See, we should have had you on earlier, Nick, because I was actually leaning towards Oliveira when we were picking the fights, and they talked me out of it and convinced me Cub Swanson was going to win, and you just swung it the other direction. Now I feel like Oliveira is the man.
Well, I mean, like I said, I've backed him the last few times, Swanson, so I have seen his game, and you can't count him out. It's a hard fight to bet. Where the line is right now, I honestly wouldn't touch it. If it drops down below 2 to 1, I think that might be worth a play. But I wouldn't be disappointed with that. If Swanson comes out with a win, I'd be happy that he, keeps his little streak going here. But I'll be surprised. Oliveira, man, technically, there's not too many fighters that can match him.
No, and that win over Brookins was one I referenced myself. Like, I thought Brookins was on a roll coming into that fight, and he stopped it cold. So that was the fight that Oliveira really woke me up to how good he was.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I mean, he's, like I said, that only question with Oliveira is obviously his fight with Cowboy, and he looked pretty bad getting caught early there. So that's a big stands out, I think, in people's minds. If that didn't happen, the line would be over 3 to 1 out.
Probably so. And I wonder if there's a long line on Hamill and Hollett, too, because we were going back and forth over whether Hamill is really a guy that's at a level in 2012 after being off for a year where you can trust him, or whether Hollett is unproven enough of a guy that Hamill can actually take him. So what's the line?
Well, it's a steep line. This one's coming in around 365 for Hamill. And man, it's just another bad matchup for Hollett. I think he's going to probably try to outpoint Hamill on the feet, but Hamill's going to be a little bit more effective, do more damage on the feet. He's just a tougher two fighter. He's got better wrestling. I just don't like this fight for Hollett. I mean, coming in and making his UFC debut, even though Matt Hamill does have the time off, Hamill's still going to be that much better than Hollett. I think Hollett's almost going to have to get kind of lucky to beat Matt Hamill here. I think Hamill can cruise and win a decision pretty decisively, or probably get the stoppage.
You can cruise. Wow, that's a very definitive statement. So Oh, you're being bold on that one, but I'll see if you back it up when we actually see it on Saturday. I don't know if it's going to be that easy for Hamill.
Well, yeah, I mean, he has had time off, so that is a little bit of a concern. But I've just never been really impressed with Holland, honestly. From all the fights that I've seen, all the footage that I've seen, I think he's almost. I know the
Peter?
Canadian fans out there are going to kind of force me for this, but he almost doesn't belong to the UFC.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Peter to have an argument for this one.
When it comes to Hamilton, it's one of those things where I think Hamill should stay retired. I just don't think that his first fight back, I think he might be underestimating his opponent here. And Holed is a good fighter. Don't get me wrong. I think Hamill should just stay retired. Simple as that.
Well, I'll tell you what, he does pull off the upset here. I mean, he's going to be on the map right away. Because Hamill, I mean, look at his resume. The guy's been in there with some of the best at 205. So if Holly comes in here and does get the upset win, then he's going to be on the map. And I will be totally wrong 100%. And I'd love to, come on the next time and how right you were about him belonging to the UFC. So, I mean, he's almost on the border, I think. That does he belong? Does he not? We'll see. If he gets the win, then I'm wrong, and he definitely belongs.
Now, what do you, side tangent here. What do you think of fighters who win the fight and then run out of the cage right away before they can announce the decision?
Forrest,
Yeah, like Forrest Griffin.
that's ridiculous, man. I mean, he could have been disqualified. Really, I'm sure somewhere, in the rule book or whatever, you can't run out of building like that. That's ridiculous. So that's kind of scary too, actually, from Ben's perspective. Because when I saw, what happened with Griffin in that fight, that you never know how that's going to be translated and how they're going to actually grade the fighters for that fight. Something crazy could have happened. Forrest could have got eaten for doing something. So that if everybody definitely took a gasp here, there was betting Forrest Griffin in that fight, for no doubt.
Now, we had Tyson Nam on the show, and he did the same thing in an upset in Brazil where he claims it was adrenaline because after he won by a knockout, he's like, "Oh my God, I won!" and he bolted.
Well,
Yeah,
I also think he made the case that he would have had several fights with the Brazilians in the crowd if he didn't split.
Yeah, man, yeah, that's not surprising there. Brazil definitely has some hype fans. That was a shocker. I mean, Tyson Nam, underrated fighter for sure. But, nobody would have thought really that he was going to pull off a win. So good for him. He hit him a spotlight. In that situation, man, you can't really blame him. I guess if you're in hostile territory and that's going on, you got to fight for your safety or try to get out there for your safety. Yeah, get out of there.
Right. He just
That's,
knocked out the hometown hero and the Bellator champion. I probably wouldn't hang around either.
Yeah, so that was a stunt, man. So I'd like to see that rematch. Or I know that Bellator's in kind of dispute with Tyson right now. I'm not sure of all the details for right now, but hopefully he gets in Bellator and they put him in the tournament. And if he can somehow make his way back to a rematch with Dantas, that'd be pretty.
Yeah, but
now,
that
Stevie,
doesn't seem
what's the
to
next
work out
fight?
very well. Oh, I just want to say that we've seen that before where guys have knocked out a Bellator champion and then gone in the tournament and not made it all the way back to a title fight. Travis Feud didn't have much luck with that, so.
Yeah, good. It's very hard. Bellator style is a tough one to make the championship for sure.
Yeah, I understand they stick to their guns. I've told this many times on this show, and I'll say it again. I respect Bjorn Rebney for taking a line in the sand, drawing it, and sticking to that side of it, saying only tournament winners get fights. But sometimes, once in a while, I think that comes back to bite them.
I completely agree. I mean, they're missing a lot of fights because, kind of limited to that. I completely agree. But at the same time, you do respect what he's trying to accomplish there. It does hinders him at times, man. They can't make some of these matchups that they would like to.
Absolutely. But I believe Peter was asking me to go on to the next fight, and that's this being in stands. So what's the line looking like on this one, Nick?
I opened Bisping here, 2-1 favorite, and it's staying pretty steady. It's around 180, 175, 180 right now for Michael Bisping over Stan. Man, it's another competitive fight. I think that Bisping's probably going to outpoint him, though. I mean, he's better technically on the feet. I think Stan's best shot is obviously getting the knockout. He does have that knockout power. Bisping won flat by Henderson, so he has been knocked out in the past, and he's been rocked. I mean, in several fights. So it's not out of the question Stan can get the knockout, but I think that's the only way he probably has a chance to win this fight. I do think that realistically, Bisping has a better chance of outpointing him getting the decision, even maybe surprising us, mixing a couple takedowns. and Cruz in getting a decision, a competitive decision. But I think that's what Bisping winning, and that's more likely the scenario. But a tough one to bet. It's hard to bet against Stan's power.
Yeah, well, Bisping does have an underrated knockout hand too. I mean, he may be famous for getting knocked out by Dan Henderson, but he has knocked out a few people in his day.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of people who underestimate Bisping's knockout power. He does too. So I think this fight could go late. Bisping probably knock him out in round 2, late round 3, if I had to guess. But if you just think the matchup, Stan's power kind of comes to the forefront over Bisping's, though.
And by the way, I wasn't making a pun when I said he's knocked a few people out in his day. I know Jason Day is one of the people he TKO'd. That was not a pun, I swear.
Yeah, man, that's fun. Actually, that was a good one. Jason Day, another guy that what's he doing now? It's a little off topic. Is Jason Day still competing on the local circuits?
I haven't seen him in quite a bit now. Let's see what the last thing he is according to Sherdog or where I can find it. Actually, it looks like he's been fighting in Peter's neck of the woods. He's had a couple of 3 or 4 fights in a row in Canada.
I love how my neck of the woods is the entire country.
Well, you do that with America all the time. You think that Nebraska and Texas are next door to each other.
Nebraska and Texas is different than a country, Stevie. Come on now.
Okay, well, he's fought in the different provinces of Canada, but all of Canada is the country. You've said so yourself. When a fighter is from Canada and they fight anywhere in Canada, they're treated like they're from that province.
Yeah, it's like Canada's own. I know.
Exactly. But yeah, he's had 4 fights in Canada in a row, and he won one of those 4. So things are not going so well for Jason Day.
Yeah, when he came in and knocked out win over Belcher. Thought, man, maybe this guy does have potential. He was looking good at that point of his career. It looked like he could make a little small run in the UFC. So it's a little bit disappointing to see Jason Day not work out.
Yeah, he went from being 18-7, which is pretty good looking, to 19-12, which now he looks like a journeyman fighter.
Yeah, big difference. It's amazing how fast some of these guys can drop.
Exactly. Well, somebody's definitely going to drop in the Bisping Stan fight. This is one thing I'm sure of. Somebody will drop from a punch. It'll either be Stan or Bisping, one way or the other.
But right now, as far as the round totals go for that fight, well, actually, we should real quick going back to the Jones ones because right now we do have 3 totals posted. For Vitor and Jones, it's 1.5. So going over under 1.5 rounds. You mentioned that you don't think it's going to go out over a round, so that's about right there. For this fight with Stan and Bisping, the total is 2.5 over. So the slight lean towards the decision is there, with a little bit of plus money on the under. So that's just some a little bit different. We don't talk about totals too much on on the show, so throwing in something different.
All right. Well, what's it looking like for Benavidez Johnson? Is there a plus minus on the rounds on that?
As far as total goes, yeah, that thing's 4.5 over 315, which means more than likely it's going to go 5 rounds. I mean, you have to lay 315 to win 100 on the juice on the over. So you get some plus money, decent plus money, plus 235 on the under. Right now, for if it goes under 4.5. And as far as the line goes, Benavidez, it's almost 3-1. I think the line's a little bit too high. I think DJ's got a chance. I don't know if you guys want to get into that fight yet.
Oh, yeah, I definitely do, because I came in strong for Demetrius when we did our show before we came on with you, and I just think that everybody's looking at Benavidez like he's going to steamroll Mighty Mouse, and I don't feel that way. I like Benavidez a lot, and I don't underrate him in any way, shape, or form, but I just feel like Johnson is in the ideal weight class for him right now, and he's very tough, and he's very quick. He's a very hard guy to stop, and I just feel like it's his time, and his time is now.
Yeah, I agree. I've set this line a little bit high because I think the general public was going to kind of be on Joe B's bandwagon a little bit more. I mean, he's looked great. His fights with Dominic Cruz, a lot of people feel that he was the best, or second best 135 pounder. So going down to 125, they pretty much crowned him the champ already. I think Mighty Mouse has something to say about that. It's going to be a very competitive fight. The line is too high right now. I think it should be closer to 2-1 for Benavidez. So I think out of a play to make on this card, this is one that stands out to me. I think that plus 200 right now, where you're seeing DJ, you got to take a stab at it because both these guys are durable enough to go 5 rounds. And if it is a competitive decision, man, then it's hard to pass up on the plus money. I think that people can be surprised here with Demetrius Johnson maybe pulling off the upset win.
To me, it's not even an upset because I just look over his record and all the guys he's beaten, like Torres and Yamamoto and Page, and he went to the distance with Dominic Cruz. Maybe he didn't win that, but just going to the distance with Dominic Cruz says something about him to me.
Yeah, but a lot of people can also argue the fact that Benavidez went in there with Dominic Cruz twice, and the last fight was a split, if I'm not mistaken. So, he's been in there with Cruz as well, and he actually fared better in that fight, even though Mighty Mouse was competitive against Cruz.
Yeah, I can see that argument either way. Peter, what do you think?
I'm still sticking with Benavidez.
That's all you're gonna say, huh?
I I really think that Benavidez, when it comes to this fight, he is the more rested fighter. I mean, Johnson went through McCall twice, and Benavidez is licking his chops waiting for this opportunity, and his semifinal opponent, didn't really give much of a challenge, so this is a chance for Benavidez to show what he's made of.
Yeah, but Johnson's definitely going to give him a challenge.
Oh, definitely. I'm just saying that Benavidez is the better fighter here.
All right. Well, we'll see in a couple of days.
Now,
yeah,
Nick,
this
I
is
have a
fight of the
question.
night, though.
Nick, I got a question for you. Let me try it again. What are your thoughts on the Frank Mir injury?
I've heard that he was injured. I didn't look too much in detail. I was disappointed and I just sent it out to cancel the fights at the sports book. So I didn't really touch on it too much. I had a lot to work on with the prelims of this UFC 152 card. So I'm going to look at it a little bit closer out there. So I haven't looked at the Mir or even thought about it too much, the Mir injury. It's just disappointing because I was looking forward to that fight. Daniel Cormier was a decent favorite, and I think it would have been another fight that would have probably helped Daniel Cormier get showcased a little bit more before he came over to the UFC, because I think Cormier is an awesome addition to the UFC roster as far as the heavyweight division goes. And with a win over Mir, that would have just, kind of solidified it that much more.
Now, another fighter I want to ask you about is the ever popular John Jones. What do you think of him these days?
Man, I think he should have just took the Sonnen fight and beat Sonnen and moved on. I mean, 8 days notice, he was already getting ready for Dan Henderson. I know it's a different fight, but I mean, you're getting ready for two wrestlers. Obviously, Henderson has that knockout power, so it's a big difference. Henderson was way more dangerous, as a matchup. Even though he was slower on the feet, Henderson's a little bit slower. He still was that much more dangerous. So, if I was Jones, I don't see how Sonnen matches up and beats him. I know that Greg Jackson didn't think it was enough time to prepare for somebody like Sonnen, but the wrestling's not going to, I think, be a factor, and that's no secret that it's Sonnen's best strong point is getting the fight to the floor. I don't think he would have got to the fight to the floor with Jones. I think Jones beats him on the feet. He can get him to the ground. He can submit him, obviously. So it's just a really hard fight for Sonnen. So I think Jones made a big mistake not going in there and just handling his business and getting the fight done and then moving on. He would have looked like a hero instead of a heel. Everybody's pissed off. I mean, he was kind of a heel before that. Now, man, it's just really snowballed on him.
Well, and speaking of making mistakes, do you think Machida made one turning down that fight when he would have been a huge hero for fighting him?
No, I don't think Machida made a mistake for turning down that fight. He already fought him once. I think Machida was actually smart. He didn't have that pressure that Jones did with turning down a fight. It was short notice, and if you're going to fight the champion, you definitely want to be prepared and at your best. And if Machida comes in here and loses again to Jones, when's he going to get the next shot? So I think from that perspective, Machida did the right thing and probably taking his time and getting as ready as he can for John Jones, because he might only get one more shot and he has to win that fight. And
well,
I think
Dana White, though, sorry to interrupt, but Dana White said that Machida no longer gets an automatic title shot. He lost it because he turned down that fight.
Yeah, but he could also get one back quicker. You know what I mean? Dana says a lot of stuff, and okay, so if he doesn't get that automatic title shot, they put him in with somebody else, even another legit contender. Chances are Machida's going to win that fight, and he's going to be right back in the title mix too. So I still think it was more beneficial, and probably he's going to make more money not taking it this soon, because I think he would have made a ton of cash in that Jones fight, but he loses that fight, potentially he makes less money down the road. If he keeps climbing back up that ladder, and I could be wrong here, but if he keeps climbing back up that ladder, even with another fight in between, then takes the fight, I think he's going to get a little bit more money. So it was a smart move by Machida. I think it was a smart move for Sonnen to want that fight, but it was a bad decision from Jones turning that fight down from Sonnen. He was going to take the Machida fight, or we don't know that for sure. I forget exactly how that all went down. I think Machida was a harder fight to take on short notice than Sonnen was too. So a lot of weird stuff, kind of that whole situation, how it all went down. What are your thoughts on it? You think that Machida made a mistake?
I split the difference. I see it half your way, and I see it half another way. I see it that Machida was not under that pressure, as you said. He was already a guy that was looking to fight Jones at some point, just not that soon. So taking it on short notice when he'd be underprepared to face the champion definitely didn't favor him. But at the same time, I wonder now, because Dana can be a spiteful person sometimes and hold grudges, you say that Machida could get one more fight and be back in that mix, but how many more fights and who are the guys he's going to have to fight? Because now he's gone from a guarantee to an unknown. So it's like, I understand Machida's reasoning, but I almost feel like it's the same as Jones turning down the Sonnen fight. It's like, the fight's there, take it while you can get it before you won't get it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess I could see that too. I think that if he goes in or loses it this quick, then man, it's just, you don't see, like Faber right now. I mean, when's the next time you're going to see him? A different division completely, but I mean, he's in a position right now. Where does he go? And if Machida does not win that title at this back against Jones, which he would be a big dog against him there too, where does he go? I mean, I guess he could still be, get some wins and rack back up for a third title shot. It's just hard for me to see a guy fight somebody 3 times for the title. It's really tough. I think it's going to be a hard sell.
And he sort of winds up in that Rich Franklin position where he beats everybody except the champion, and then what do you do with him after that?
Yeah, exactly. Rich Franklin's probably a better example of that. Yep, right. He ends up there, and what do? You have a talented fighter, Rich Franklin. He's kind of in between divisions right now, so it's tough.
Exactly. So, you mentioned the Facebook fights and that you were working on the prelim fights and all the other fights on UFC 152. What are the most interesting lines out of those fights right now?
These were all very competitive fights and very hard fights to set lines on, so I had to take a lot of time and go through, and make sure I ballparked all these lines pretty solid. Right now, I would see the one that's getting a lot of attention or interesting would be Hedis over Brimage. Jimmy Hedis is coming in around minus 425, so 4-1 favorite over Brimage.
Wow, that's too long to me.
A lot of people are reacting that way too, but the line's only going up, man. A lot of people are betting it up. It's up 450 now some places, so I'm glad I opened it where I did because Hedis is going to be one of the parlay favorites this weekend too. I was one of these guys that was kind of the other way around. I opened Fan against Hedis too high. I mean, the public came in and bet it down, and I made a mistake here, so I'm not going to make a mistake twice. I have to learn from my mistakes, and I didn't think that he was ready for Fan, and Hedis obviously wrong there. So it's another situation here. I think that Brimage is an outstanding fighter. In fact, he was impressive in his last fight as well, but I just think that Hedis was that much more impressive. And the way these guys match up, he's going to get the fight to the floor, and on the floor, I mean, there's no question what kind of edge he has over there. Brimage needs to keep this fight standing and knock him out. So that's why you're seeing the edge on Hedis, and the people, fans out there, the betting public agree. So they took him from, I agree with you, man, 4-1's kind of outrageous, but I had to kind of put it there, and glad I did because it's moving up 450 and parlays is going to be higher.
I understand that. How's Burek and Magalhaes looking?
That's another one that is getting a lot of attention, but a lot of people weren't sure which way this was going to come out, who's going to be favored in this fight. I favored Igor, who's coming out around 1. It's staying pretty steady. A little bit more money's coming in on Vinny right now. I know what Vinny's up on the ground, so it's a hard fight for me to set a line on Vinny because when you got a guy at that level of BJ, man, a lot of people think he should be favored over most, but he still needs to improve the game. I know from the time he's been covering UFC, he has improved his standing. He has improved his overall MMA game, but he's still not quite there. I think that Igor keeps this on the feet. If he does, he's going to bust Vinny up, probably get the TKO stoppage in this fight. So a hard one to come back to, and that's why you're seeing 2-1 here. Hopefully Vinny's competitive in this fight. I think even standing, it is going to be competitive for a little while, but Igor's going to be a little bit too much on the feet for him. And he's got that veteran experience edge in this fight too that I think will probably matter a little bit.
I can see that. Peter, any of the prelim fights you want to ask Nick about?
Kyle Noak and Charlie Brenneman. What are the odds on that one?
This was another interesting one. Brenneman's about a 2-1 favorite, coming around 220. Noak is plus 180. And again, stylistically, the way they match up, I pretty much think that Brenneman's probably going to get the takedown and blanket him for 3 rounds. Noak's going to have to stoppage here to win this fight. So it's a tough one. I know Brenneman has been stopped. Didn't look that impressive in the Silva fight. It almost looked like he quit. So I was a little disappointed to see Brenneman kind of go out like he did in his last fight. But this is a different match here, and I think he probably will have success to the ground. That's why you're seeing it there. And the fans agree again. The line's starting to climb up on Brenneman. Starting to creep up a little bit towards 2.5 to 1 spots.
All right. Now, are there any other fights in the near future that you are keeping your eye on?
Always big fights. Any big fight that gets announced, try to jump on it and post a lot early for the fans out there because there's a lot of demand. So right now, there's all the big fights are out there. When there are some marquee matchups announced, try to get on the MMA Oddsbreaker show and release the odds there. So there's a few on the radar right now. I don't want to spoil it. They're coming out, but make sure you guys just stay tuned. MMA Oddsbreaker, we'll have some more stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah. The only fight I would ask
Peter.
about would be GSP and Carlos Condit.
That's what I was just about to say as well, so you beat me to it.
GSP and Condit. Line's holding steady around 3.5 to 1 for GSP. I opened it a little bit lower than that. The public GSP up. I think I opened it closer to 3 to 1. So it's staying ballpark. It's not an outrageous line. I'm interested to see how GSP does come back and look after the time off, the surgeries, everything that he's went through here. If he's got the same, if you guys can maybe help fans out there, especially people, since Canada is your whole area. if you give us some insight, what are you hearing about GSP's camp?
Well, GSP's camp is looking good. He's relaxed. He's taking this fight and this fight only. If you ask him about Anderson Silva or Nick Diaz, he's not even thinking about it. He is focused on Condit. Everything is focused on Condit. He even said in an interview he has no idea what his plans are the day after the Condit fight because he's not thinking about that right now. He is 100% focused, and a focused GSP is a dangerous GSP. That's for sure.
Well, that is definitely good to hear because this should be a great fight. Condit, you can't take him lightly, man. And plus 265, plus 275, what the odds are out there. It's going to be interesting to see where the line goes, man. But GSP, I'm really looking forward to seeing him back in action. And I'm glad to hear what Peter had to say.
Stevie, your thoughts?
I'm with you on that. GSP, when he's focused, he should be a favorite. And I'm glad he's not looking past Condit because Condit is super tough.
Yeah, Condit scares me sometimes, but when GSP comes out in Montreal...
He shouldn't scare you. His nickname is the Natural Born Killer.
Yeah, but I mean, when GSP comes out in Montreal after being away for 18, 19 months, the ovation he'll get will be off the scale.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, it really will. And like I said, man, I can't wait to see him really back in action and seeing if it's going to be a big deal. There's going to be so many people tuned in to really see, if he's even up to par, like close to the same level he was, because he was such a special fighter, no doubt.
And one of the most popular that there's ever been in UFC. I mean, he's like the anti-John Jones. Like everything that people hate about John Jones is everything that people love about GSP. He's humble. He's self-effacing. He just works hard and everybody loves him. So it's like he's the anti-John Jones right now.
Yeah, he is. He's very marketable. You're right, man. He's just a huge star, and I'm glad it worked out for him. Hopefully he does look okay and he continues his reign there because, man, interesting fights. I would like to see the Anderson Silva GSP rumored fight that people are talking about in the future. I think it's one of the fights that makes the most sense down the road than any of the super fights they're kind of throwing out there. So hopefully GSP comes back as close to 100% as he can, and maybe one day we get to see Anderson Silva versus GSP.
See, I've been very argumentative about that with Peter on this show that I feel like there's not a lot to gain for GSP by going up in weight to face Anderson Silva because He's already at his peak weight right now. I can't see you putting a single pound on that guy and having it benefit him in any way.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, looking at it, even for both guys, I mean, a loss would kind of hinder their. I think it wouldn't be very good on the resume. You know what I mean? Because we have these guys both on such a high pedestal that it's kind of a tough fight for both guys. But you're right. At 185, it's going to be that much harder for GSP to go up there and fight Anderson Silva that way. So we'll see. I mean, just from a pure fans' perspective, I want to see how that fight plays out.
Especially, this is my biggest argument against it. We've seen Anderson Silva fight at 205, and he doesn't look chunky. He looks natural at 205, which tells you how much he cuts to get to 185. So I feel like it's a huge size mismatch.
Yeah, it is. Definitely is. But, man, you can't ever count GSP out, even in that fight with Anderson Silva. I mean, GSP, such a smart fighter. His wrestling is top-notch. I mean, arguably he's the best wrestler ever in the sport. And that's saying a lot. I mean, especially not coming from a true wrestling background. So he's such a special fighter that, I mean, if both guys come in at 100%, you can never count GSP out, man. He gets those takedowns. You never know.
That's true. He could pull a Chael and just take him down round after round. It could happen.
Yeah, it could. It could.
All right. Well, I think we're just about running up on it, Peter. So if we got any last questions for Nick, go ahead. Otherwise, we're going to get the plugs.
No, thanks, Nick, for coming on the show again this week.
Oh, always a pleasure, man. You guys do a great job, so I appreciate you guys having me on.
And like I said, plugs are yours, so feel free to throw them out. I know you'll probably want to start with the websites, but I'll throw out one too. Follow him at Fight Odds on Twitter.
Yep, you can check me out at Fight Odds on Twitter. At MMA Oddsbreaker on Twitter is the website Twitter at MMAOddsbreaker.com and also BetOnFighting.com. A couple other spots out there at BetDSI.eu, a big, strong supporter of MMA, so make sure you guys check those out. It's a great book as well. So, and also Bookmaker mentioned on the show, Bookmaker.eu. So a few spots out there to check out.
Awesome. Well, again, Nick, thanks. We always appreciate when you come on and share the lines with us and discuss fights. And there's plenty of cards coming up, so I'm sure we'll be having you back on again real soon.
Yeah, once this weekend gets rolling here with UFC 152, there's a lot of MMA, a lot of big fights coming up, so looking forward to it.